Thanks for having me. Yesterday it was not just 6 months since the Russian full-scale invasion. It was also Ukraine's Independence
Of
Day. And
course.
Russia greeted Ukrainians with that by firing the biggest number of missiles since the start of the war. Well, at least the number of air raid alerts was the highest in one day since the start of the invasion. About 200 sirens were sounded across Ukraine yesterday. And Russia struck more than 50 cities and towns and villages, killing 25 people in a village of Choplin and Dnipro region, where they hit a passenger train, so killing passengers of a train. So, of course, that gives you an idea of the terror that Ukraine continues to live in for all these months.
Yes.
But at the same time, if we look at the polls and the mood in Ukraine, we'll be surprised to see how resilient Ukrainians are and how much they believe in their victory. So the poll was published last week, in which more than 90% of Ukrainians said that they believe that Ukraine will win this war and also will be able to restore the control over occupied territories, including Crimea and Donbass, something that might be looking very fantastic and, very far away in time. But people are very hopeful. And this gives you an idea of this incredible resilience and spirit of Ukrainians that is not fading away 6 months into the war.
Which was probably the largest element of Putin's miscalculation in the first place, to completely fail to appreciate just how... Well, it's an existential threat that Ukrainian people feel, I think, and therefore they will fight to their dying breath to resist the invasion.
Yes, well, absolutely. It's a war of annihilation, a genocidal war, and Russians are hell-bent on, just destroying Ukrainian independence, destroying Ukrainian state, Ukrainian identity, and Ukrainians are well aware of that. And I think increasingly also the other countries are getting aware of that. So it's not some sort of standoff between, NATO and Russia or some other reasons that Russia presented for this war,
Of
like
course.
some denazification of Ukraine, a complete nonsense. It's an existential battle for Ukrainians, and that explains this resilience, spirit, and defiance. And this is also the battle, of course, for the future of democracy, not just in Ukraine.
How, and I hope this isn't a silly question, how do you gauge whether things are going well or not? I mean, in the early days, it was a simple case of identifying what the objectives of the invaders were, and then measuring whether or not they had succeeded. Did they succeed in taking Kiev, or did they succeed in besieging cities? We could work it out, but now it's become more attritional. How do you get a proper handle on where progress is being made or not made?
Well, you can still look at the map and see what territories Russia managed to capture in this last months, and there are very few. So they are making a very, very slow progress in the east of the country, and the battles there are very heavy. Then another criteria is, whether the Western aid is still flowing. Is the world still committed to stand with Ukraine and to support Ukraine? And of course, the news yesterday that the US will be sending aid, more, package, $3 billion package that Boris Johnson and his surprise visit to Kyiv yesterday promised more aid from the UK. This, of course, is very uplifting for Ukrainians, because I think, it's not an issue of how long and whether Ukrainians will be able to resist. I think the real variable that will determine the outcome of this war is whether the West will be, standing with Ukraine the way it has done before, and also whether the pressure on Russia will be increased, because while there were some welcome steps, they are not enough to defund Russian war machine. Sanctions on Russian energy sector are not as strong as they should be to make Ukraine win this war.
And do people speculate in Ukraine about how long it is likely to take, or is it simply a case of shoulders to the wheel and we are here for however long it needs?
Well, in this sense, the rhetoric of Ukrainian officials is very significant. While in the very first, stage of the war, they were assuring Ukrainians that it will be a quick battle.
Yes.
Ukraine will, win, or there will be somehow the war will be over soon. The rhetoric has changed. And just today, Ukraine's Minister of Defense said that, well, it will be a long battle and we have to get prepared for that. And I think most people are now realizing that, and they are adjusting their lives accordingly. Either they are deciding deciding to, leave Ukraine and become refugees, or if they are already refugees, to stay abroad, or, they just accept this risk and the fact that the war will be long and they stay in Ukraine or return to Ukraine, but with full realization that the war might still go on for a long time, but also willing to contribute to this resistance by being inside Ukraine.
Have you personally been surprised by that?
Well, I wasn't surprised by the Ukrainians' resilience and their resistance.
Why were so many people surprised, do you think, Olga, given that every Ukrainian I've spoken to has seen it almost as part of their identity? Why was the world, but of course Russia in particular, so ambushed by the reality of your national character?
Well, I think it was partially, from maybe the misunderstanding or not total understanding of how Ukrainian society has changed since 2014, when Russia first invaded and annexed Crimea, and how that actually shaped and strengthened Ukrainian national identity, and the way people started to care more about what democracy means, what freedom means, what the human rights mean, because this is also the war for human rights, because we see complete disregard for them on territories occupied by Russia. So I think this extent of this transformation in Ukraine, both in terms of Ukrainian identity, but also in terms of the reforms, the reforms of the defense sector. We've seen that the Ukrainian army has really changed a lot, and is, it's not worse or maybe better than many armies of the NATO countries currently, and very capable also to flexible, to come up, to adjust, to come up with innovative solutions. We're seeing now surprised words from some US officials who are saying that they have never expected that Ukrainians will be so good at, even with those limited weapons that they had at the very initial stage of this war, to be able to repel very strong, Russian attacks. So I think, of course, partially it's overestimation of the strengths of Russia, but it's also the underestimation of the strength, spirit, and the transformation of Ukraine.
That's absolutely fascinating. Thank you. How can my listeners access more of your work, Olga?
Well, you can follow me on Twitter, Olga Tokaryuk, and you can listen to me on Radio Monocle and Monocle Mag. Their freelance correspondent in Ukraine.
Thank you so much, Olga Tokaryuk, the Ukrainian journalist speaking to us live from West Ukraine. After the junction, we'll speak to Robert Fox, the defence and security editor of the Evening Standard, about the more military side of the current situation. 6 months into a war that Vladimir Putin thought would be over after 3 days. It's 11:46. 11:48 is the time. We continue our catch-up, for want of a better phrase, on the war in Ukraine with Robert Fox, the defence and security editor of the London Evening Standard. Robert, what sort of war is this now? How would you typify it in terms of sort of precedents, if you like, or past conflicts?
Well, I think that Olga gave an absolutely terrific depiction of it. She was absolutely magic, extremely articulate. But I'll give you two aspects very quickly, James. One is on the ground, which is much of the war that we're seeing. Things are stuck.
Yes.
Big Russian forces can't make big Russian gains, and the Ukrainians don't have big enough ground forces to really make significant gains. Despite the much advertised counter-offensive on Kherson, which is a vital ground, they haven't got it, nor should they do it. And in fact, there's a little bit of a split there, because Zelensky keeps on bigging up the prospect of an attack on Kherson, particularly to the foreign press, and his commanders, who played an absolute blinder tactically and on the ground and in terms of security, are saying, no, we attack when we're ready and when the Russians aren't ready. But the crucial part of the war is the war we're not seeing, in which Olga is a true expert. And it's the information, disinformation, cyber, electronic warfare, propaganda, counter-propaganda warfare. And that is where we're breaking new ground. I think we're on the cusp of the first true digital war, where a lot of the perception and support will be fought with things like avatars and things like the thing that's just beginning to appear, like the metaverse.
Yes.
Because, can I add, the propaganda piece, it seems to me, from information I've been receiving overnight, is not going at all well for the Russians.
So, and that would explain the levels of support and optimism in Ukraine.
Yes, indeed. Because the Ukrainians, as Olga pointed out, they're super social media savvy. there's a split in generation lines
Right.
in Russia, as far as I can make out. The blah, blah, blah that you and I hear nonstop, we're denazifying, we're under threat from the fascist West,
Yeah.
all this sort of stuff, state media, it goes on, and it's a broken record. And people of a generation, of my generation, I hate to say, swallow all that.
Right.
But get under 30 and get under 25, they can use various things like Telegram still, and they're not going for it. What is the proof of that? Putin is trying to build a new, the third core, southeast of Moscow, as we speak.
Right.
And they can't get the recruits to sign up.
Gosh.
And they can't get adequate training. The other thing going forward, the thing that we're bigging up so much, is that the massive Russian artillery, yes, it is massive,
Yes.
but it is old and tired, and their ammunition is pretty knackered, and they're using it up very fast.
How do you account for that miscalculation on Putin's part? Is it just someone who is he's had too many plates spinning, or someone who's losing his grip, or just events, dear boy, events?
I think it's Putin culture.
Right.
Putin culture is a KGB spook, FSB, and then he's fallen out with the FSB quite clearly. Look at the Degurov murder, because it looks as if it was an inside job. If they haven't gone loud pedal on blaming the Ukrainians, of course they've said that, but not used it as a false flag. Putin doesn't like his generals very much either. He has got a securitocracy around him, and he is not being told the truth. And I don't think he knows how to handle it. What is my evidence for this? He's going around the houses to people like the Chechens in Dagestan, in Ingushetia, to beat up anybody he can to join the band, to join the party. We have heard a lot about the Wagner company. They've not been significant at all.
No. How does it end then?
I think it's a very good question. It's the question we have to ask ourselves every day, James. I see it as the following. And it's like climbing a mountain or slogging your way through 5 sets in a tennis match. It's the next point that counts. Russia doesn't make its significant aims, and it's only got one big municipality, and I think it's about to screw up on getting referendums for Zaporizhia and Kherson, because I think it's going to blow up in their faces. Yes, they'll vote to join Russia, and Russia won't be able to enforce that. They won't be able to occupy those territories. Russia doesn't make its aims, it loses. Ukraine stays in business as a viable government, as a viable community, and as a viable, more or less, war machine, it wins. And the next 6 months is going to be the big test. Ukraine doesn't have to do much more than it's doing at the moment. Keep fighting, doing what it does very well. These unexpected operations in Crimea. If it gets through the next 6 months, it's looking at victory.
Crikey. Thank you, Robert Fox, diplomatic and security editor, defence and security editor at the London Evening. So it's always such a pleasure to talk to you, Robert, and to benefit from your deep knowledge and understanding. And the reason I pause slightly there is to just hesitate with the optimism, having spoken to Olga and heard about the spirit of Ukrainian people, as we have done many times over the last 6 months. That idea, that tantalising idea that Robert just dangled in front of us of actual victory is probably the most upbeat analysis that we've heard since it started. Please may it be true. It's coming up to 5 to 12. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. That stuff about the digital warfare, absolutely fascinating. And again, as we often cover in much more trivial areas, the generational divide, having to look at it through the eyes of somebody under 30, even if you're well over 30, and recognise the world is changing, the world is turning. And that brings us back to the conversation we were having about technology. I think we're possibly going to cross live now to Merseyside Police Headquarters and Rachel Venables.
James, we've just been having a briefing here by Merseyside Police on not just the murder of Olivia Pratt-Corbell, of course, the tragic case of that 9-year-old girl who was shot and killed in her own home on Monday night, but they've also been talking about 2 other murders, also fatal shootings that have happened, all 3 of them in the space of less than a week here in Liverpool. We've had a briefing from the head of investigations, DCS Mark Kameen. I'll start with the case, their investigation into searching for the killer of Olivia. They gave us a few more details about the man who was shot in this case. As you know, a man called Joseph Nee, 35 years old, was chased through the Dovecot area of Liverpool. He seems to have forced his way into Olivia's mum's home. He was chased. He was followed by a man in a balaclava who had a gun, who fired, we think, indiscriminately, shooting Olivia's mum in the wrist and fatally killing the little 9-year-old girl. Now, the gunman is still, not the gunman, the man who was shot is still in hospital. We know he's speaking to police. They say, crucially, they've been able to identify, with the help of members of the public who they say have come forward as a community to support the police. They've identified the second man who was with Nee that night. They've been able to speak to him as well. They've also been able to seize a black Audi, the car that seems to have picked Nee up from the address and driven him to her hospital, crucially leaving Olivia and her mum behind as Olivia bled to death. Effectively, police have spoken to the driver of that car, to the people who were in that vehicle. And really there was a very strong message from GCS Mark Kameen to the gunman who is still at large. This huge hunt progressing now. The streets of Liverpool very much controlled and patrolled by Liverpool police, who are out in force. DCS Mark Kameen from Merseyside Police telling the gunman that they will find him.
In my previous appeal, I asked for the man responsible for this brutal, callous, thoughtless attack to surrender himself to the police. Unfortunately, that individual has failed to do that. But my message to him remains the same. We will not rest until we find you, and we will find you.
As I mentioned, Olivia was the 3rd person to lose their life to gun violence in this city in the space of just a week. The day before, on the 21st of August, Ashley Dale, in her late 20s, died after being shot in the Old Swan area of the city in what police believe was a case of mistaken identity. They've just told us that a man and woman have been arrested in that case. He's been arrested on suspicion of murder, she for assisting an offender. And there was another murder as well a few days earlier, Sam Rimmer, killed in cold blood, they said, on the 16th in the Dingle area of Merseyside. 3 men there have been arrested and they've all been released on bail. So you can see 3 hugely complex, very difficult, exceptionally tragic cases that have rocked this city. This force doing, they say, everything they can to bring the killers and everyone assisting the killers to justice as they beg the community to trust them and to come forward with information. Also stressing in a briefing just now that they do not believe any of these 3 cases are linked in any way.
Rachel Venables, many thanks indeed. And any updates, of course, on LBC throughout the day as and when they occur. That tale, every element, every detail of that story is just, it almost defies belief. The journey to the hospital with the wounded gunman and the little girl, as Rachel just described, left to bleed at home. It's coming up to 12 noon. Goodness me. That is a horrible, horrible business. I always feel a slight sense of relief when we turn to the much lighter fare that concerns us weekly from 12 o'clock on Thursdays, but it's an even more crunching gear change than usual today, I think it's fair to say. Mystery Hour is up next, your weekly opportunity to achieve the sort of satisfaction not ordinarily available anywhere else on your radio dial. If you're not familiar with it and you don't know what I'm talking about, then expect, as I say, a fairly profound change of mood.
Is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. Mystery Hour with James O'Brien.
3 minutes after 12 is the time. Sometimes I get texts or messages off you that just get me right in the feels. And oddly, we got one in the last hour when we were discussing how much time parents spend on their devices, their phones and similar, might impact upon their children. And I got a message which got me, as they say, right in the feels. I can't find it now, almost inevitably, but it simply said, we played Mystery Hour last night, James, and my 12-year-old made me turn my phone off before we started. Isn't that absolutely lovely? That'd be right on message as well. And now we segue from a conversation about parents spending too much time on their phones and children feeling they have to compete with the phone for the parents' attention to actual Mystery Hour. And if you're wondering how you can play it at home, well, there's a board game. You should know that by now. I do mention it fairly frequently, and I will no doubt be mentioning it again in the course of the next hour. But first things first. Here it was. It was from Leo. Played Mystery Hour last night. Daughter 13 hid my phone beforehand. I even got the details wrong. Fake news, fake news. The phone was not turned off. It was hidden by a very clever-sounding 13-year-old. OK, so here we are. Your weekly opportunity to do all that malarkey. What happens is you ring in with a question, someone else rings in with an answer. It's that simple. It is genuinely that straightforward. It's a lot more fun than those very bare bones allow. And relatively recently, we have added the magnificent bonus of a prize. You can win your own Mystery Hour board game by being my favourite contributor of the day. That's it. Management's decision is final, and I am the management. So, like it or lump it. The contribution I like the most, whether question or answer or something in between, will receive a brand spanking new Mystery Hour board game. You can find out more about the game at mysteryhour.co.uk. Indeed, you can buy your own copy. You still get change out of 20 quid. Incredibly good value. And the terms and conditions for the competition that I undertake now every Thursday at 12 are available at lbc.co.uk. We'll just crack on, I think. You're not allowed to look anything up. I think it got a bit sticky last week. Did you? I think there were a couple of lads last week, not mentioning any names, who had actually looked it up. I've never understood the point of doing that. I have to be honest with you. I mean, unless it is just the thrill of getting on the radio, which I do understand and appreciate. But honestly, it kind of spoils it for everybody, especially if everybody else listening has Googled it because they were curious and aren't going to ring in because they know the rules and is listening to you essentially read out what it says on. So don't look stuff up. We can usually tell, and I think I've mellowed a bit in recent years, so I don't know that I am going to call you out for it because it's such an uncomfortable listen. But I might, so be warned. That's the only rule, really. Repetition is our department. Frankly, we gave up on that years ago. For a while, you weren't allowed to ask a question that had already been asked, but it's been going on for so long now. It's been going on for even longer than the Conservative Party leadership contest, Mystery Hour. And I'm flipping out. That's hard to believe, isn't it? So I gave up on repetition, unless it's really, really, really obvious. Really obvious. Like we asked it 10 minutes ago. 0345 6060 973. Ben's in Wickford. Ben, question or answer?
I have a question, please, James.
Carry on, Ben.
Okay, so my question is, why do you never forget how to ride a bike? And there's a bit of context here.
Go on.
My two little ones, they're 5 and 9, and they've both got autism, and they're having a bit of a nightmare at the moment trying to learn without stabilisers. So
Aww.
I took them to get some private lessons done, and they were brilliant. I was so proud.
Yeah.
They sort of inspired me to get a bike again. And I used to be a postman about 20 years ago. One of my first jobs was at Royal Mail.
Yeah.
And I was on the bike all the time. Now, I left 15 years ago, and I've not touched the bicycle since, not once. So I was inspired by my kids. I thought, do you know what? Cost of living, save some petrol. I'm going to buy a bike, and I'm going to ride to work.
Love it.
So I did that. Looked at it for about 2 weeks and thought, don't fancy it. But this week I decided to get back on it, and it was as if I had never been off a bike. It was as if my Royal Mail days were like yesterday. Why is that?
I'm going to have a go, but there's no way I'm going to get a round of applause for this. I think it's confidence. I think that and you'll have seen this with your little ones, it's fear of falling off. That is the defining factor when you're learning to ride a bicycle. And that relationship between momentum and stability is like a switch that gets flicked, isn't it? It's when you suddenly realise that your dad's let go of the back of the saddle and you're cycling along. I think that's like a Rubicon. That relationship between momentum and stability is like a Rubicon, and once you've crossed it and you've understood the relationship between momentum and stability, you'll never go back again.
But I can barely remember what I did last week. Doesn't matter.
It's not. It's a sense memory. It's not an intellectual memory. It's the knowledge that that you will, however wobbly it feels, it's the knowledge that when you reach a certain momentum, stability is established, and you can never go back from that. It's like a river. You've crossed the river.
That's it. That's it going forward. No, I can see the logic in that. I'm not convinced.
No, I'm not expecting you to be, even though, as always happens with me, the more I talk about it, the more convinced I get by my own burblings and theories. So I will definitely leave it on the board. But
okay, cool.
But I suspect it is something to do. It's going to be more psychological than physical. I guess that's the point that I'm making. I like it, and keep pedalling, Ben. Don't stop pedalling. Keep it up. It's got so many benefits. 9 minutes after 12 is the time. I like that question. Jack is in. How do I pronounce that? Is anyone going to tell me? Is it just Shenzhen in China? Jack, welcome. Question or answer?
Hey James, how's it going?
Pretty good, Jack. Welcome. Not often we get calls from China during Mystery Hour, but you're especially welcome. How are things over there?
Yeah, all right. I'm on holiday at the moment.
Fantastic.
So waiting to go back to work.
Fantastic.
Yeah, can't complain.
What's your question?
So I was wondering about chickens.
Yeah.
On their head, they've got that red flappy bit of skin.
Yeah.
Looks like a glove.
Yeah.
I was wondering what the purpose of that was, because other birds don't have it.
It's like it's fleshy, isn't it? It's not feather. It's like a fleshy outgrowth.
Yeah, it looks like sort of red skin, I suppose.
Well, it's going to be sex, Jack.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to make them more attractive to other chickens.
So is it just males or just females?
It's like, well, I mean, you've put me on the spot now. I'm not entirely sure. The chickens are all female, so it's going to be the female. The cockerels don't. Do cockerels have that? I can't remember. So I think it's going to be sex. It usually is. There's a very good book by a woman called Helena Cronin. I don't know if it's still published, called The Ant and the Peacock, which is all about the displays, the sexual displays that are made in the animal kingdom. But I don't think I can. I don't think. Well, there's no other explanation for it, is there? Unless it helps regulate hydration or something like that, or temperature. But I can't give myself a round of applause for this.
I'll hold on for another answer.
Yeah, I think you should, especially given as you've paid us the compliment of ringing in from holiday. What do we call it? The comb? Is it a comb? Call it a comb? What's it for? The red bit, the red protuberance on a chicken's head. What purpose does it serve? 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. Paul's in Horsham. Paul, question or answer?
Question, please, James.
Carry on.
Right, when I'm walking my dogs out around fields, I tend to see cattle and horses that are troubled by flies, particularly around their eyes.
Yeah.
Why don't those flies affect my dogs? Why are my dogs not pestered with the same flies?
Well, what are your dogs doing on these adventures?
Walking generally.
Yes.
They're on the lead or off the lead.
And what are the cows and the horses doing?
Generally grazing,
standing in a field,
and looking at the dogs.
So the answer to your question is that the dogs are moving. If you were to glue your dog to the floor, don't do this at home. Your dog would soon have a fly problem. And if you were to head down to Cheltenham Racecourse and watch a horse race, you'd see that the horses in the race don't have a fly problem.
But the cows and horses also move, and they swish their tails to get rid of the flies.
They do.
So why do the flies keep coming back to the horses and the cows and not my dogs?
Because the horses and the cows are standing still a lot. Your dog is never really to be found standing still in the garden.
Is that all it is?
Yeah.
It's nothing to do with the chemicals in their eyes or something that they're attracted to, or whether they're herbivores or carnivores? I think
maybe with the bottoms... the flies. No, because you see flies on your dog poo, don't you? If you don't,
definitely, yeah.
So no, it won't be.
But they don't like the eyes.
But they would do if the dog was standing still. It's just like getting a little bit of salty water or something like that, I imagine. I don't know the detail. I'm tempted to give... I've gone 3 for 3 now with answers that I think are correct. And I haven't had a single round of applause yet, but you sound pretty sceptical too.
I'm not convinced, James.
Well, what else could it be? You've got a blooming great cow standing in a field doing nothing but swishing its tail away, and you've got a dog running around the place. One of them has got flies buzzing around it and one hasn't. What else could it be?
Do you know, I didn't think this subject would get you so animated.
Well, then it's time you start. I mean, for heaven's sake, what are you expecting, man? It's 3 in a row now. Honestly, I mean, it's like I'm doing this for your amusement rather than mine. This is ridiculous.
I've already got a board game, so I don't need one.
Oh, blimey. All right, then. Well, you're not getting a round of applause. You wouldn't expect a round of applause. It's only a question. How are you getting on with the board game?
I haven't played it yet, but we're on holiday next week, so I'm taking it with me.
Fantastic. I love that. Taking me on holiday with you.
It's going to Mauritius. It'll be well travelled.
Ooh, that'd be nice. That's outrageous. I've never been to Mauritius, but my board game will have been by this time next week. Have a lovely holiday, Paul. And if you see any elephants standing still in Mauritius, they'll probably have some flies buzzing around them. But if they're galloping down a sort of road, they won't. But apparently I'm not allowed a round of applause for that one either. Sam's in Amersham. Sam, question or answer?
Hi, Dave.
Hello,
it's Amersham. I've got a question for you. Well, actually, my husband's got a question. I have to credit him.
Yes.
All the goings-on at Downing Street led us to thinking we've seen quite a lot of PMs coming and going, but there's one constant, Larry the cat. And we thought maybe Theo might be able to answer this.
Excuse me, what do you think I am, chopped liver?
Sorry.
Carry on.
Well, maybe you can answer it.
Yeah, probably. What is the question?
Who does Larry the cat belong to?
The Cabinet Office.
He's a Cabinet Office cat, so who's looking after him? Who's the main...
Well, no, you're only allowed one question. It's the Cabinet Office cat. They have mices.
Do they have a roadside to look after him?
No, you're only allowed one question. You asked who it belongs to, I've told you. It's the Cabinet Office cat. Larry the cat is the Cabinet Office cat.
So if the Cabinet Office changes hands...
Qualifications, I just know this. I'm one of Britain's foremost political commentators.
Of course you are.
Round of applause for me. Thank you very much. That is the answer. It's a mouser as well. I know that too. I don't remember where I picked this up, but it's the Cabinet Office cat, which is why it stays when the Prime Minister's change. So it is the Cabinet Office cat, not the Prime Minister's cat. It's 12:15. It is 12:18. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where Mystery Hour is underway. It feels like you were so strict with the rules about additional information and questions with the last caller because you had reached the limit of your knowledge about Larry the cat, says Hunt the Economist. Yeah, and? I mean, come on. It's a very odd Mystery Hour this week. It's almost like you've forgotten that it was designed entirely for my own amusement. Questions that still need answers. How come you never forget how to ride a bike? I've answered that, but you won't accept it. What's the red comb on a chicken's head for? I've answered that, but you won't accept it. And the flies, why do flies land on cows, bother cows and horses a lot, but not bother dogs? I've answered that, but you won't accept it. And then the Larry the cat question, which I dealt with quite perfectly. Jonathan's in Lichfield. Jonathan, question or answer?
Answer, please, James.
Carry on, Jonathan.
Okay, I don't mean to correct you, but you're actually wrong about the chicken combs.
This is going out of hand, man. Go on then.
Okay.
Keith, pack it in, mate. Seriously. No, hang on. Stay there, Jonathan. Mate, seriously. Just watch it, all right? Carry on, Jonathan.
Chicken combs are actually there to regulate body temperature. Right. Chickens and hens can't sweat. So male chickens and hens both have combs. And if you ever see a chicken, normally in the summertime, the combs are quite big, and that's so they can let off more body temperature. And in the winter, the combs shrink a little bit so they can retain body heat. And funny enough, I actually phoned up about 6 months ago to answer a question about birds tucking feet up, and it was exactly the same principle. I said my chickens tuck the feet up, and that's also to retain body temperature.
Well, nothing to do with sex, chicken sex.
Nothing to do with sex. Male chickens have combs, and so do hens, which obviously all hens are female.
Well, I did actually say something about that, but I did it in quite a throwaway manner, Jonathan. I don't know if you noticed.
To be fair, James, you did also say all chickens are female.
Well, mate, can we just focus on the bits I got right? I did say something about regulating hydration or temperature. I'm 99% sure.
Yeah.
I think I did, didn't I, Keith? Yeah? What? No. All right. Qualifications?
I keep chickens and hens.
How many do you keep?
I've got 3 at the moment.
Only 3?
I only 3 at the moment, yeah. But when I first got 2 of them, they're ex-factory hens, so they were rescued from the slaughter.
I remember.
Yeah, so the two actually, when I first took them in, their combs were so big they actually covered their eyes. They actually couldn't see. When I had them checked out by the British Welfare Hen Trust, they said because there's so many chickens in one cage, they get too hot. Because they get too hot, the combs get bigger, so they can let off more heat. And now they've got probably about a 10-foot coop between three of them, and the combs have dramatically shrunk down.
That's absolutely fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's science.
It's one of them questions you wouldn't know unless you have hens.
I guess so.
It's a bit of a silly answer.
It's not silly at all, and you've actually seen it happen. I had no idea they would grow and shrink according to how the chickens were living, how they were living. That's gorgeous.
Yeah, I know. And another little fun fact.
Yeah, go on
I don't think it's been scientifically proven, but when you have a pecking order with hens as well, because all hens have pecking orders, and you do tend to find the one with the top pecking order, the top bird, she's got quite a big comb, and as they get down, they have smaller combs, and we think it's probably because when chickens establish a pecking order, they peck each other's combs, and we think that they might actually shrink the combs down, so they've got less chance of being pecked as well.
Massive round of applause for Jonathan, please.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. What are your chickens called?
I've got one called Mabel. The other two are ex-battery hens. So when I first got one of them, she had no feathers on her. And she looked like Kevin from Home Alone, so I called her Kevin. Bear in mind, she's female. Yeah. And then the other one had feathers everywhere but her head, so we called her Chrome Dome.
I love it. I miss my chickens a lot. I really do. Jonathan, thank you. Liz is in Benfleet in Essex. Liz, question or answer?
I've got an answer.
Come on, then.
It is about the riding the bike.
Oh, yes.
So there are three types of memory. Procedural memories, semantic memories, and episodic memories. Procedural memories are a kind of memory that you never, ever forget. And they're to do with things that... like procedures that you follow. So riding a bike, driving a car, things like that. You never forget them. You might lose a bit of skill over a period of time, but you pick it right back up again because your neurons are already...
So psychologically, once you've assembled the skill set, it can never be disassembled again?
No, not unless you...
have full memory loss.
Terribly goes wrong.
Have what?
Well, you say that.
Yeah.
There was a man called Clive Waring.
Oh, yeah.
And he's really, really famous. He used to be a musician.
Go on. Yeah.
He used to be a musician. I suppose it depends on what crowds you run with.
Yeah, it's true.
So he used to be a musician back in like the 40s, 50s.
Right.
He suffered from a virus, part of the herpes family.
Okay.
And it travelled into his brain and it did a lot of damage. And he had complete retrograde amnesia and anterograde amnesia, which meant he couldn't remember anything from his old life and he couldn't form new memories either.
Good grief.
And he lived in about 20-second period of time.
Whoa.
Yeah.
But he could still learn music.
Yeah, he could still play piano. He would say, nope, never seen a piano before in my life. Nope, never learned to read.
He's still alive. He's still alive.
Is he still alive?
Yeah.
Wow. That's I know the story and the myth and the legend.
No,
but yeah.
He sang as I just looked it up just because I wanted to tease you about him not being famous at all, but he is actually really famous. So I look like an idiot now.
Yeah.
You didn't have to agree quite so quickly with that. That faux self-deprecation. And that's a beautiful example because goodness knows he used to think he'd just woken up from a coma. He does think he just woke up from a coma.
Yeah, he says things like, I'm awake for the very first time. It's been like death. No night, no day. I've never experienced anything before. Like when he has interviews and stuff, he goes, you're the first people I've ever seen in my life.
And so riding a bike is that. It wouldn't matter. Once it's there, it's there. You can never get it out again. It's a bit. I think I'd give myself a bit of credit for the crossing the Rubicon thing and then never being able to get back over it to the other side. But your explanation knocks mine into a cocked hat. What are your qualifications, Liz?
So I've got a master's degree in psychology, and I'm about to start teaching secondary school psychology, and memory is our first unit.
Oh, look at that.
So I've just been planning all these lessons, and then I heard that, and I was just like,
What an absolute touch. Have a round of applause on me.
Thank you.
No, thank you. A beautiful answer and a brilliant question, as it turns out. Farah is in Hayes. Farah, question or answer?
Hello, James.
Hello.
It's a question.
Carry on.
Mate, I'm really starstruck. But anyway.
Don't be silly.
I met you a long time ago in Norfolk in a pub.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Which
I gave
pub?
you a little scoop about the Queen.
You gave me what?
Scoop about the Queen and her health.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, how you doing?
You remember,
what are you doing in
Very
Hayes?
good. Where I live. Norfolk is where my in-laws live.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Live in Sandringham.
Fantastic. What
Yeah,
pub was it?
anyway.
What pub was it? Can you remember?
I don't remember, but what happened is when I saw you, I went up to the bar and I said, the barman, I said, oh my God, you know who that is over there?
Don't spoil the story
like-
by telling me the barman's reaction, Farah.
He went in, and what is he then? And I went, mate, it's London. It's massive. It's James O'Brien, mate. And then I kept looking at you, and you went, oh no, you've clocked me.
I did not. It's delightful to be spotted by a devoted admirer such as you. It's outrageous to suggest. It's probably, was it the Crown? It might have been the Crown. I don't know. Would it be the Crown?
Possibly.
Anyway, where were
It was
we?
a little pub. You was in the corner with your wife and the girls.
Lovely
Anyway,
stuff. Question or answer?
other thing, James, I must thank you for the amazing work, coverage you gave. The compassion you showed was amazing.
Thank you.
So well done.
Thank you.
All right, question, James. It's a dishwasher.
Yeah.
My dishwasher is so smart. It has an auto setting.
Yeah.
So what I do is, if I load in 3 dishes, 3 plates, I switch it on and it's on auto. It does them really quickly. But if I've loaded it and it's got loads of pots and pans and it's on auto, it's ages. So my question is, how does the dishwasher know when the dishes are clean?
My goodness.
There's a camera in there, but I've looked inside it and there's no cameras.
I've never noticed that because I only ever put it on when it's full. So if you put it on auto when it's not full, it takes a lot less time than it does when it's full.
Yes. And
well, I tell you what, today every day's a school day, isn't it? That's how. So how does it know? I mean, because I mean, it's not a timer, is it? Weight. Could it be weight? Couldn't be. What could it have scales in it? Could it be weight?
I very much doubt it.
I don't know. That is a classy question. That really is.
Thank you, Dave.
And I wasn't optimistic when I saw the sort of note on the board. I thought the answer was going to be, it's got a timer in it, mate. You absolute doofus. But no.
No. Complicated, Dave.
All right, top man. Thank you. I'll see you in Norfolk. I'll see you in Norfolk. Will I?
Take care, mate.
Look after yourself. God, it's going to be a tough choice for the board game this week, isn't it? See, I'm not even joking. Declan's in Vienna. Good Lord, it's like the United Nations or something today. Declan, question or answer?
It's a question, James. Hello.
Hello. What is it?
Yeah, I was just talking to your assistant, and my question is, you know, like in the old Western movies with the cowboys and like the Alamo, or your assistant, who reminded me, like in the Middle East, when they celebrate, they shoot like AK-47s in the air in celebration and that, you know?
Yeah.
Where do the bullets go?
Well, they just come back down to earth.
Well, is it not kind of unsafe? I mean,
no. It's terminal velocity, Declan, isn't it? So you're worried about someone getting hit on the head by a falling bullet.
Yeah.
But they're not. It's a falling bullet. It's not a speeding bullet. It's a falling. It's reached its peak and then started falling. And when it starts falling, it will reach terminal velocity. It can't go any faster. It's why this question is actually the same as the question about whether it was true that a penny thrown off the top of the Empire State Building could kill someone.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you there.
There, you see? I read your mind. I read your mind live on the radio. It's not allowed, that, actually.
There you go.
Yeah.
So
no, it's because it won't. The bullet will never be going fast enough to hurt you badly if it's falling out of from its peak.
Okay.
You don't sound enlightened, Declan.
I'm more baffled.
Well, let me think about. All right. Let me try and explain it to you in a less baffling way. So,
please.
All right. So I've got a gun.
Right.
And I shoot the bullet in the air. Okay, this might help, right?
Right.
Now the bullet is going up, right?
Right.
And then it stops. before it starts coming back down again, the bullet actually stops. So you need to completely reset the bullet. It now no longer matters in any way, shape or form that just 30 seconds ago, propelled by gunpowder, the bullet was travelling at a speed capable of killing a man. Because the bullet has now stopped. So we have to start again from zero. And because you're starting again from zero, all you're actually doing is dropping a bullet. So no matter how high that bullet has gone into the sky, all you are doing is dropping it from that height. And because of terminal velocity, i.e. the point at which a body can go no faster, there's no such thing as sort of eternal infinite acceleration, that bullet will never, because it started from zero. So it will.
And what the gravity, it wouldn't give you a
but
knock on the
it's the
head
same.
or
No, I mean it might hurt you. I mean, in fact, it could kill you if you got desperately unlucky. But it's not. It's never going to shoot you.
That's what I mean. So you could get hit or maybe killed.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be like the same as being shot. It would be having a small piece of metal dropped on you from a great height, not shot. You see? Yeah. Are we good?
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah? Are you sure?
Gotcha.
Fantastic. Round of applause for
Give
me.
a round of applause to yourself.
Top man, Declan. Thank you, mate. Amelia Cox is here now with the headlines.
Mystery Hour with James O'Brien. This is LBC.
12:34, everyone's a critic. Gary writes, this bullet slows down due to wind resistance and gravity as it rises until it stops at the apex of its trajectory and then speeds up again as it falls, but does not have sufficient time to reach a velocity that would be fatal. I feel like that would have been clearer. Well, I got the round of applause. Fiona's in Nuneaton. Fiona, question or answer?
Hello, James. I've got a question for you.
Splendid.
Okay, so I would like to know, why is a banana more sinful to eat when it's mashed up than it is to eat it whole?
More whatable to what? What?
So, for instance, on the Slimming World diet plan,
Other diet plans are available. Carry on.
Yeah, of course, yes.
A banana.
So a banana, for instance, it does happen with other fruit and veg as well, but a banana is more sinful to eat if you mash it up than if you eat it whole.
Sinful? Do you mean calorific content?
Well, I think it might be calorific content, yes.
But sinful is that sinful is a Slimming World thing, is it? Is that the phrase?
Sins is a Slimming World thing, yes. But in general, it does make it more.
But that's
more fattening, shall we say, to eat if it's mashed up.
No, but you can't say fattening because we don't know that that's what it means.
No.
Do we?
All right. Well, no, we don't. But in the literature, I have.
Yeah, but this is about their business model. No, I don't know the answer to that. Well, admittedly, it's not all about what I know. But this isn't quite the question that I thought it was because it's about their. I mean, here's the short answer. Ready? Actually, I think I've bloody solved it. I've got it. Fiona, I've got it.
Oh, okay. Okay, tell me.
You will use up calories chewing.
But the energy you use to mash it up, you also use
but there's nothing in the thing that says you mashed it yourself.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that that's the right thing.
Well, how can you not be convinced? How many chews does it take to eat a banana that's not been mashed up versus how many chews does it take to eat a banana that you drink a banana really that has been mashed up? You barely exercise your jawbone at all.
Well, no, because it doesn't actually go to liquid, does it? It's like pulpy stuff.
It depends. You're probably going to put it in a smoothie, aren't you? So it actually will be part of a drink. Ergo, QED correct. Me.
Oh, okay.
All right, I won't take it.
I'm not convinced that
No, I
that's
know
the
you're
right
not.
answer,
I'm not going to take a round of applause. And also, I mean, it probably shouldn't have given such prominence to the company that you mentioned because it just turns into a free advert. But that's not your fault.
I have researched it, and it does in general say that fruit and vegetables are, they do have more. They are more fattening to eat if you mash them up rather than eat them whole. And I just wondered why.
But because you're not chewing them, because you're not exercising chewing. Chewing is exercise.
Exercising, you're still using energy to mash
but not
them
as
up,
much, not as much energy.
Okay.
I mean, also, how much energy does it take to mash a banana? You sit on it or something. All right, I'll put it on the board. Why does mashed fruit and veg apparently have less beneficial impact than unmashed fruit and veg? Paul's in Godstone. Paul, question or answer?
It's an answer, James.
Carry
How are
on.
you doing anyway?
Yeah, I'm very well, mate. Very well.
It's about the It's about the dishwasher.
Yes.
What happens is there's an infrared transmitter and receiver that shines through the water, and it can tell by the intensity of the light that the receiver receives how clear the water is. And that's how it can tell how clean the dishes are.
Seriously?
Yes.
So when the dishes have become clean, the water runs clear, and the dishwasher knows it's time to turn off?
Yes, that's exactly it.
That's a beautiful answer to what, with all due respect to far... Actually, no, it was a fascinating question as well, because I didn't even know it was a thing. Because I don't think I've ever turned the dishwasher on auto without it being full, Paul.
No, now you know what it does.
Right, mate, what are your qualifications?
I've been a domestic appliance engineer for 30 years.
Sensational. Have a round of applause.
Thank you very much.
Oh, great work. Absolutely great work. Thank you. Well, anyway, it's funny the things you find fascinating. That one's absolutely got me. 12:38 is the time. Louise is in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Louise, question or answer?
It is a question, James.
Carry on.
Okay. Oh, by the way, we played the board game last weekend and loved it.
Oh, fantastic.
It was great. It was great.
Isn't it? It's a real treat. All the fun for all the family as well. mysteryhour.co.uk. You can find out for yourself. Thank you, Louise. That's lovely to know.
All right. So my question is, we recently saw a double rainbow, and I noticed that the colours were reversed on the second rainbow. So my question is, can you have a third or even a fourth rainbow at the same time? And would the order of the colours keep reversing each time?
I mean, you're not really allowed two questions.
All right. Well, do rainbow colours...
No, I'm going to let you. Don't worry, because you just complimented the board game, so you get a free pass on a little wiggle on the questioning side of it. So, is the second rainbow not just a reflection of the first rainbow?
Well, that's what I don't know.
No.
And then I'm thinking, if we got multiple rainbows, because we've had a lot of double rainbows recently over here, because we've had a lot of rain in the spring, because the weather's a bit crazy.
Okay, cool. I like that a lot. I shall endeavour to find out for you. So, can you get triple, quadruple rainbows, and if so, do they reflect like the double ones do? I like that, Louise. Thank you. 20-1 is the time. Quite a bit of debate about the bullet question, which is good actually, because it's obviously quite important that we get the facts right. Otherwise, someone might get shot. Celebratory gunfire, as in it can kill. We knew that, but apparently, if you shoot it horizontally, it's a slightly different relationship between the apex and terminal velocity. Does that make sense? I don't know that it does, actually. Sorry, I think I've confused it even further. Asher is in Wanstead. Asher, question or answer?
Question.
Take your time.
Can I first, though, take my debut on LBC to bring you up on something? Correct you, actually.
No, absolutely not.
Well, when it was just recently...
No, I'm being deadly serious. You categorically can't do that.
Okay, Ben. Oh my God, I'm even more nervous now. Okay, my question is.
Go on.
My question is, why is it a priest wears the white dog collar, and why is it called a dog collar?
I mean, the obvious answer is to denote the fact that it's a priest.
No, I know that. Yes,
Yeah.
Of course. Yes, and that was why I was thinking about it, because I was catching up on the last few episodes of The Walking Dead.
Oh, yes.
Because we reinstated Disney Plus back on recently, because my son also got his GCSE results today.
Fantastic.
So we had them all off while he was thinking. And I just catching
How
up
did
on
he
the
get
last
on?
few
Did he do
episodes.
all right?
Yeah, he did really well.
Sensational.
Bizarrely enough, on his worst subject that he got a 4 for in the mocks, he got a 9.
Oh, get in! Yes, congratulations.
Yeah, but yes, and the in-house priest there, Gabriel, for all those Walking Dead fans, on the penultimate episode, I think it was, he purposely took off his dog collar because they were going into a settlement where it was like led by a cult, religious zealot. Okay, and he didn't want to be, known to be as a priest, so he took it off, and it just got me thinking.
Why did it come from?
Yes, and why is it called a dog collar as well?
Well, because it looks a bit like a dog collar, I imagine. I don't think there's much of a mystery on this. Well, it does.
No spikes on it or anything like that.
No, but it's just round, a collar. No, it's just... Well, all right, I'll put it on the board.
Collar, yeah.
Why do priests wear dog...
Yeah.
I like that one. Why do priests wear dog collars? It's on the board. Let me just jot it down. Dog collars. Asher. And now, what did you want to pick me up on, Asher?
Okay, well, one of the questions before about the flies around animals' eyes. and he was taking your board game to Mauritius.
Yeah.
Now, my heritage is Mauritian,
Right.
and we don't have elephants in Mauritius.
What about in the zoo?
So he's unlikely. Well, I was going to say the only place he's likely to see it, and this is a tip for him if he's still listening, there's a great place called Castella Park.
Yes.
It's like a theme park, and it has some safari animals.
Exactly.
I think there may be, I'm not sure, I think there may be an elephant there.
Exactly.
I'm not too sure whether they have got elephants there.
Exactly.
It's a small island and it's such a big animal. I mean, where's the space?
Oh, crikey. Honestly, everyone's a critic, aren't they? Unbelievable.
More so you.
It's just a throwaway line about an elephant in Mauritius. And everyone turns into, I don't know, the Spanish. I wasn't expecting the Spanish Inquisition. Asha, it's a lovely question. I'll try and get you an answer. All right, I'm going to run through. And my apologies for my pachydermal faux pas. I have questions that still need answers. All right. That flies one, actually, that Asha just reminded us of. Why do flies buzz around cows and horses but not around dogs? I know, I thought so too, but it's on the board. We've done Larry the cat. We've done the dishwasher. We've done the bullets. Why does a mashed up banana or fruit and vegetable is of less nutritional value or more? I don't know. I don't understand the question. Well, I understand the question, but why does mashing or blending fruit and veg make it less good for you? 0345 6060 973. Do you ever get triple or quadruple rainbows? We've seen a double one in Westchester, Pennsylvania. I've also seen them in England, actually. But do you ever get triple or quadruple ones? 0345 6060 973. Why do priests wear dog collars? And why are they called dog collars? I'm going to let Asha have two questions there because she saved me from continuing elephant-based embarrassment.
Mystery Hour on LBC with James O'Brien.
It is 12:47 and you are listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where the Mystery Hour continues. I've just run through the questions that need answers. If you can answer any of those, you go straight to the front of the queue. Joe's in Greenwich. Joe, question or answer?
It's an answer.
Carry on, Joe.
So the banana question, the smushing of it.
The smushing. Smushing. Is that the word we're going to use? We're going with smushing.
I guess so.
Okay.
Sorry, I have some toddlers in the background.
Have you tried a smushed banana?
Only chopped up in a blender.
Carry on.
So there's a bit of misinformation around in regards to that. What people could be referring to is the thermic effect of food, which is more appropriate when you are digesting proteins. So when it's something like a fruit or a vegetable, that would be negligible. So it doesn't change the calorie content of it. So the calorie content of whatever you're consuming, the fruit or the vegetable, that's actually the same. It's a little bit of something that we've been arguing in my business for a while. Are you in the diet business? I am.
Okay. Surely, if you think of it as digestion, as a process, surely smushing it actually means it's already a bit digested by the time it gets into your gob, never mind your tummy. So it is going to have
very little effect.
Yeah, but some.
It will have very little effect.
Very little effect.
Yeah, sorry. I
think you're right. I mean, it seems to me to be the case that a tiny bit maybe, but not enough to really make much difference. Not enough to make any difference.
No, not to call it a sin or not. No,
I don't like that. Right, qualifications? You've already
I'm a
told
nutritionist.
There we go. Well, then that puts a slightly different complexion on things. When I said I in the diet business, a nutritionist sounds a little different from being in the diet business. A little bit more authoritative.
Yes. Okay, I'm not in the diet business, but yeah, I am a nutritionist.
Well, you've got a round of applause. Full fat round of applause.
Thank you.
No, thank you. 12:49 is the time. Stephen is in Carlisle. Stephen, question or answer?
Question, please, James.
Carry on.
Recently, while watching the European Championships, was with friends, and I was posed a question which I couldn't give an answer to.
Oh, yeah.
And it was about swimmers and why they continually break world records quicker than the equivalent from sort of men's and ladies in athletics.
Yes.
And you hear the term fast tracks regarding running and things.
Yes.
And I wonder whether there was such a thing as a fast pool, and whether there is anything to do with just the environment, or whether it could be to do with water quality or composition, stuff like that. And I couldn't get an answer.
That's quite interesting, actually. So, are there any really old swimming world records?
Not that I could really, because you watch the swimming and you see them being broken kind of quite consistently.
Yeah, you
and
do.
is it just that the athletes are getting substantially better through training techniques?
Well, that seems the most obvious answer, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
You've also got the kind of people whose physiques have been honed different. I think of rugby. I always think of my old pal Lawrence Delalio when questions like this pop up, and just the physical change in him from when he left school to when I bumped into him a couple of years later, and he was playing in the scrum for Wasps, and he was twice the size he'd been the last time I'd seen him. So there's probably, actually to go back to the last caller, in areas like nutrition and exercise, you're building up muscles very specific to the job that you're doing. But the question is about the pool.
Yeah, is there such a thing as a fast pool? Because obviously,
I like that.
if you think of north and south, we have different water quality, don't we? So does that happen in different countries as well? Because sometimes there's desalination in certain countries where there isn't like a fresh water supply.
Okay, well, if you swim, you have less resistance in water that's got less chlorine in it. I don't know, because you're talking about tenths and hundredths of seconds, aren't you? So it could be. I like that question a lot. I mean, at first glance, I will not lie, I thought it was a bit daft.
Thank you for that.
Well, a fast pool. I mean, come on, a fast pool. But actually, coming to think about it, maybe there is something environmental about the incremental increases in speed as opposed to individual.
Like you, my first answer was that it was just down to the athletes getting substantially better.
Yeah, so we just need someone who's really plugged into the world of competitive swimming, really, don't we?
Yes, please.
Good man. Thank you, Stephen. 12:52. If you're really plugged into the world of competitive swimming, the number you need is 0345 6060 973. Jez is in Saltburn by the Sea. Jez, question or answer?
Answer, James.
Carry on.
The bullet one.
Yes.
When we analyse bullets in maths or any sort of projectile,
yes,
we're aware they have such a thing as an initial velocity, but we can't really do maths with that because it immediately becomes subject to curvature because of gravity. So what we do is we have a vertical component and a horizontal component.
Yes.
Now, you're quite right in what you say where the vertical component comes to zero,
yes,
and then the bullet starts back down under free fall. So we know, for example, in humans that if somebody jumps out of a plane before they pull their parachute, they'll hit about 140 miles an hour. And they won't go any faster because of air resistance.
Yes.
Now, I don't know whether that same number applies to a bullet, maybe because of its shape a bit faster.
Sure.
Either way, being hit on the head would not be good. And I believe people have been killed by bullets falling again.
Got it.
But, of course, that would just be a vertical shot.
Yes.
It would be pretty irresponsible to do if you were under it.
Yes.
The minute we shoot something horizontally, what you're saying still applies.
Right.
But you've also got the horizontal component. Well, not sorry, at an angle. Let's say at an angle.
Yes.
We need to involve. We involve trigonometry, and the horizontal component is pretty much maintained, apart from when you get into things like air resistance.
Okay.
So it's very simple mathematics. It's the sine of the angle and the cos of the angle, the sine for the vertical component and the cos for the horizontal component. So something going horizontally will maintain the majority of its speed, I said, apart from given air pressure, until it hits something or simply falls to the floor.
Got it.
Right.
No, I got it. So there's no apex.
Something which
there's no apex, is there?
Well, if you were to fire it at an absolutely horizontal direction, you could say that your initial shot was the apex, and it was immediately falling.
Yeah.
So that would be your apex.
Yeah.
So the funny thing is, it's hard to get your head around, but the minute it begins to fall, it's still falling under gravity because there is no other force acting on it. So the minute you shoot horizontally, it's beginning to fall, which is why we have that interesting question about how fast would you have to shoot something and before it would be in permanent orbit. Of course, which is consistently falling all the time, falling around the curvature.
That's an amazing answer. Oh, I love it. Thank you. Qualifications?
Maths teacher.
That'll do nicely. My head started hurting about halfway through that explanation, but in a good way. David's in Watford. David, question or answer?
It's an answer, James. It's an answer to the why do priests wear collars?
Yes.
Dog collar is just a nickname because dogs, of course, wear collars.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you see a priest, you see a collar
And
there.
not like a shirt collar, so you need something that distinguishes it from a collar, and it because it's more like a dog collar than a collar, you call it a dog collar.
Yeah. Well, kind of priests nowadays wear kind of like cheek collars, so they're just little slip-in tabs that go on front of like specially designed shirts. But if you're wearing the proper uniform and you're wearing it with a cassock or a baton or whatever you'd like to call it, it's a tonsure collar, and a tonsure collar is a full ring around there. So you remember that friars, so of course like Franciscan friars or Dominican friars will have a tonsure haircut, so that ring of hair that's cut around on the top of their head. So it's a tonsure collar, and it's scriptural reference, and everything that clergy wears has a religious meaning to it. And so the meaning of the collar harkens back to the martyrdoms and the Diocletian persecutions in Rome, where Christians would be put in collars, and as slaves they would be taken to the Colosseum, and of course then would be martyred for sport in front of everyone. So the priest is always reminded that he is a slave to his calling, that harking right back to St. Peter, when St. Peter said to Christ, Christ goes...
I mean, you're a man of the cloth, are you, David?
I am a priest.
So I'm reluctant to argue with you.
Yeah.
But I don't think this works, because I don't think that clerics did wear particularly distinctive garb back in the day. I think it's a relatively recent development.
Yes, your garb has evolved over time.
Yeah.
So St. Peter didn't walk around in a collar at all. No, so things have always evolved, like uniforms have evolved.
But I think it was probably only in Victorian times that they started wearing dog collars.
No.
Well, where would you find a depiction then?
Well, I mean, I can't pull that straight out for you right now.
Well, then you shouldn't have gone quite so full-throated on the no, should you?
Well, yes.
I don't know. Well, I went to, as you may know, a monastic school, and
of course, yeah,
a lot of imagery around the place, and the dog collar didn't turn up until very, very late, long after St. Benedict.
Well, well, you probably don't really see St. Benedict wearing a dog collar, a clerical collar. Yeah. I mean, each order has their own particular garb that they wear.
I don't think the clerical collar was a thing in the olden days. I think it's like 200 years. I think it's relatively recent.
But you're probably getting things like abbots and friars mixed up.
I don't know that I am. I think we need to find what's the oldest existing picture of a cleric in a dog collar. I don't think. Then that's limited.
Rely on picture?
What?
Does it rely on a picture, or could you go back to Scripture and say, like, when Peter said to Jesus, "I'll follow you," and Jesus said, "You will have a girdle placed around you, and you'll be led into places that you don't want to go."
That's nothing to do with collars.
Hence, that's the. Well, a collar is that. Well, a girdle.
I'm going to let Sheila Fogarty can sit in judgment on this one as a good Catholic girl. David, thank you.
Come on, Sheila.
So dog collars, Sheila. Did you hear this?
I did. I'm
not having it. Are you having it?
Well, I think something like the white dog collar in the form of tie and bow and stuff like that goes way back to the very early church, like 6th, 7th centuries.
Not because of slaves.
No, not because of being dragged around by a girdle. No.
Sorry, David. No.
It was to be identifiable as priests and leaders.
To stand out from the flock. I'm out of time as well now. My favourite is probably Liz, who gave us the answer to the riding a bike question, and she deserves a board game because she's about to start teaching.
You got quite meta about the bike, didn't you? Yeah. The momentum and what was it? Momentum and stability. The
great Douglas Adams, when he was on a roll, used to say that it's like throwing yourself at the floor and missing.
Oh, it is, isn't it? Yeah, or it was when you couldn't ride a bike. Yeah,
isn't that wonderful?
That's a good way of describing it. Yeah.
Anyway, over to Sheila. 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 Anyway, over to Sheila.
lặng lẽ ngồi buồn, biển chiều hoang vắng mây